Right. We are here. NFT hype. Well, the hype is here, Mike. Like, I don't know. The hype
It's
is
back,
here.
baby. It's back like big time, and it never really went away, but like it definitely is back in force. And like people are buying like did somebody pay $69 million for like a Beeple on Christie today or some crap like that? Like something
69
insane. Like,
million. Yeah, they did. 69 million.
wow. So maybe NFTs aren't just all like a waste of electricity or something, according to Twitter. There's some kind of like anti-NFT movement going on. Who knows what that deal is? But yeah,
All I know is the hype is officially here. And I think there's more to talk about, but why don't we regress and talk about what are NFTs? I mean, we've been around pretty long in the NFT space now. We weren't the first, but we were definitely early. And it's like let's talk about for the newcomers, like what is an NFT? What does it mean? What initially attracted you to it and me as well. I can talk about that. But first off, what does NFT stand for, Michael?
non-fungible token.
Okay.
And so what I always first explain when I get into this, because I mean, most people have no clue what fungible means, right? And so essentially what I say is that fungible is like the dollar or a penny or any item that's like exactly the same, has exactly the same value, and is completely homogeneous, right? And then the difference between that and an NFT is that NFT is unique, right? So it's a non-fungible token rather than like every other token in the world, which is pretty much a fungible token at this
Okay.
time.
So would it be accurate to say that unique is non-fungible and non-unique is fungible?
Yes, 100%. And I mean, really, like when it comes down to it, all an NFT is some data that somebody put together, and it probably has an image that's either recorded on chain, ideally, which is like the gold standard, but mostly on IPFS, which is also pretty good because it's a distributed file system, right? So, and as long as you retain those links, you'll never lose it. But the problem is retaining the links. Because
Yeah.
sometimes if people, blacklist NFTs or nobody had the IPF links in the first place, or it's not displayed in the metadata, or there's all sorts of different ways where
Hey,
you
you
could
went to
potentially
one
lose
to
that.
two to NFT 201 already. Just slow down.
You're so right.
Let's finish
Uh,
off with 101. So blockchain, how does that fit into the picture? Like where an NFT, is it a token? Is it on a database somewhere? Is it on a blockchain? What would you
so it's
say
a
to somebody
blockchain.
brand new to this?
It's just a transaction. That's it.
Okay.
It's a bunch of code that's linked to an item that's created by a transaction, essentially.
Okay. So
A
going
digital
back,
item.
a digital item that lives on a distributed ledger, which is managed by the consensus of everybody in the network, and it uses blockchain technology. Did I say anything
Yeah.
wrong yet?
No, but I think there's probably a lot of people that just were just like, what did you just say? So consensus means that everyone gets along and agrees that this is what needs to happen. And usually that consensus is formed by the block producers or the block validators or the miners, depending on the network. And they essentially earn money to send the transactions at the
They,
end of the day.
they earn money to send a transaction, but also verify the the
Authenticity,
accurateness on the authenticity of the amounts, right?
correct.
Okay, so if I spend $5, then everybody agrees that I spend $5. Then it's it's on record as I spent $5. So how does that
Correct.
relate back to NFTs? Basically, you have this authentic piece of unique item, which the network agrees is valuable and is scarce, right? So if you have, let's use our favorite atom bomb. If you have one of 737 of them, which I think the mintage of the base,
I have more than that.
what about number one?
No, I don't,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah, what would that go for, eh? Number one.
Oh man. It, I mean, what did it did sell? Didn't it sell?
The number one atom bomb base? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it did. I don't know.
Hmm. I know number one Nick did.
Oh yeah.
It sold for like 40K wax, and that was when wax was like, I
So
don't know.
let's put it in perspective. Like, if could somebody else come along and say I have number one atom bomb, or is there just one, not one number one atom bomb?
The only way that you could say that is if it was minted on a basically a completely different set that was illegitimate. So no, like you would never be able to own number one atom bomb base unless you got it from gpk.tops, right? That is the source of gpk.
But this is something that's super gray area in the art world and regular collectible world is fakes, and also not knowing where the provenance, which is a big word, is not. It means that you're able to track the from the beginning where it was created all the way to where it is now.
Yeah. And the beauty with NFTs is that not only can you do that, but you can track the actual mintage numbers and all the details surrounding it. So you can see when they were minted. And so it's true provenance versus like the traditional art world where some guy painted it at some point and he might have made a few copies of it. And you don't know when that happened exactly. Like you can get a date based on historical reference, but you don't have a piece of data telling you exactly the time stamp that that happened, right? So it's a
So putting
bit,
this all together, like, if you knew that, you could also verify ownership, like who owned this, or let's say there was a public account that owned this, that created it, that you have the creator account, but then you also potentially, depending on how people want to reveal their privacy, but you can, the owners are also public record, so they go from your, like if I knew your address, then I could say, oh, Big Mike owned that, or hey, this went through the hands of Elon Musk or something like that, right?
yeah,
Right?
which is the old like Seinfeld joke, right? Like I own John Voight's car, right? So, but yeah, I mean, someday somebody potentially could go like, hey, that's Big Mike's address. I used to own this. I own this NFT he used to own. He sold it to me or something, you know?
So if
So
you get
yeah,
more famous, you're already famous, but if you get more
I
famous,
mean, dude, the fact that I'm famous is just like, okay. But yes, if I get more famous, then eventually somebody will be like, damn, my Big Mike owned this NFT. But at the same time, like there's somebody out there that's gonna go, holy shit, Bluejays own this NFT.
oh
Damn,
yeah, there you go. I
I
like how you
remember
threw that
that
one
guy.
around. Thank you for that one. That's awesome.
Uh,
Yeah, so what we've gone to is we've talked about what it is, where it's on, the technology behind it, uh essentially, like what, how we all agree upon that this is valuable, right? And authentic.
honestly, like, I mean, that kind of blew my mind at first too, because like it's just pictures, you know, and we're buying digital pictures, but like, but they're unique. So there's only so many of them. So like, you know, I can go out and hoard like 300 potty Scotties, and then the next thing you know, I own half the supply. So like, I can dictate the price, right? So it's like they're definitely worth something, and it's a market, and you can influence it with your actions, right? So
Yeah.
It's
And
funny
for
how we
the
attribute that value. It's really funny, but we do, and people pay big money for mints too. Like at first nobody thought that they would,
yeah.
right? And then me and Kev started paying, and then it was like, you know, people were chasing me, and all of a sudden it was a thing, and it was on, and now people pay. Like look at Blue Wizard, he pays like freaking ridiculous amounts of money that I could never even dream of paying
For a
for
mint.
number ones. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems to all come back to, so you mentioned one thing there, which is mints, and we have a video, we'll probably link to it in this about where we talk about mints. But it all comes back to everyone agreeing on what's number one mint versus number two, what's authentic and what's legit, right? And then there's a picture that's associated with all that, which is the end product in a way, which is an image. But then there's just so much things behind that image. And that's
Mhm.
why NFTs are so valuable, right?
It's the data behind the image that ties it to the actual blockchain that gives it like a almost a digital presence would be a proper way to describe it, right? Because like if you just grab an image off the internet and have it on your computer, like yeah, sure, you may have that file, but like everyone else could have that file too, and there's no limit to how many of those files you can copy.
Right.
But on chain, that's a completely different story. You know what's going on. You know the mintage. If somebody decides, you know, if the template's infinite or if the template's closed, right? So there's all these different, which essentially means like, so if it's infinite, then the creator can continue to create the NFT into infinity,
Yeah.
right? Forever.
I'd
If
actually
it's
like to talk to you
closed,
about, we should probably have a follow-up video to that where we go and talk about templates and things like that as well too. That would
mhm,
be an awesome conversation.
for sure. So, but if it's closed, obviously it's a limited number.
Yeah.
Right, which then gets back to the scarcity thing. And there's a lot of reasons that we probably won't really go into, but the one reason, like for Nifty Wizards, is because we run mostly infinite templates because we're a game and we don't want to run out of NFTs to sell down the line. Like somebody's always going to need a key, right? So we want to be able to keep minting them. But also, then we take that in consideration to how we mint things, and we're looking into deflationary ways of dealing with excess supply. So there's kind of like different things a project can do to give assurances to its users that it's not just trying to like fed them out, you know, and
Yeah.
just print a bunch of money
So you're
essentially.
talking pretty
So
much about scarcity here.
mhm.
Going back to authenticity a little bit, which is I think the hot button item that NFTs is solving. Scarcity is an awesome kind of like side effect in my opinion. Not even side effect, but a secondary thing. The first thing is it being authentic. Now, when you go to, let's say, a marketplace and you're about to throw down dollars, then you want to make sure that that's the real legit thing. I think that's your first thing in a buying
Yeah,
decision, right?
number one for
Number
sure.
one. And
And
what,
always looking at whether it came from the collection and whether that collection is verified.
okay, talk about that. What does that mean?
So most of these platforms, these NFT platforms, have a verification system that they go through so that they know who the creator is, and they give themselves a little bit of sort of street cred by checking into them and getting all their details and stuff, so that it's not just some random person creating a bunch of stuff that could potentially not even be their art, right? So, and that's always another risk, is that people will take stuff from the traditional world and then just print it without any, you know, sort of permission whatsoever, right? And that's something obviously we want to try and avoid, because we want to support NFT artists as well as the real world artists, and we don't want to, you know, get into copyright issues and that kind of thing.
So
But
this is like, what you said there is like imagine there was somebody having a sale like on the beach where you are, and somebody's having a whole bunch of art there, and you see one that's signed like Picasso, and you know, you look at it, you're just looking at it, you're tapping on it, and you're just like, oh, I wonder if this is real, right? This is what NFTs are solving essentially, isn't it? It's
as
like,
long as you know where it comes from. And that's the thing about being educated, right? So you got to know what the original account name that produced it was, essentially, because you can't necessarily trust the markets,
yeah,
but they do a pretty good job of filtering most of the spam.
yeah,
And as long as you're like an educated consumer and you know the artist that you're buying from or the game or whatever it may be, and what the original um, minting name or address or whatever it may be, because on ETH or Wax or all sorts of different chains, it's different, right? But as long as you know that originating address, essentially, because they're
hmm,
all addresses, you know that it's legit, right? You can trace that problem.
right. So
You
there's
can't do with
transparency.
a painting. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's plenty of people out there that try and determine the veracity of real art, but there's no actual blockchain link like there is with NFTs.
Okay. So like let's say there was a equivalently valued real piece of art that you saw down at the beach, and it was signed by a artist which you thought like you really was a big fan of. And then there was another piece which was digital only on a marketplace that was verified from his or her, uh, that's a verified part of their collection. But the physical piece, you weren't really sure. You didn't know how many was created. You didn't know it was a one of 200 or whatever. And then your digital piece is clearly defined as one of 200, definitely from the artist. If you had like a sum of money, which one would you throw the money at to purchase if you could only choose one?
I mean, I probably would most likely take the digital one because I just don't know anything on the physical one at all. I mean, if I knew the artist or I walked in his shop or yada, 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 then that'd be a different story entirely. But if it's just some random painting on a table versus an NFT that has an authentic link to that artist, then
Oh,
it's a
that
no
kind of
brainer in my
scenario just
opinion.
explains why everyone's buying up these NFTs now, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And also that they're just hard assets. Like anything that's a hard asset, people want to hold these days, right? So
What is a hard asset?
um anything that has like a limit, like a scarce supply, essentially, so that it's not going to continue to be inflated like a lot of currencies
Okay,
on this
but
planet.
let's say there were 200 and 740 atom bombs or whatever it is, and you're saying that there can only be 737 because that's what the base supply was for atom bomb and GPK OS1. Um, what you're saying, one, is that if somebody created that exact same set somewhere else, it wouldn't get the social consensus of everyone going, okay, well, that's kind of like a copycat or something, right? There's some reason that we're not going to, as a
Everyone would
group,
just be like, oh, it's fake,
right?
it's fake, that's it, it's just, and that's all it is. Like everyone's just like, that's fake because it
Okay,
doesn't come
so
from
then the
GPK dot
supply,
tops.
what you're saying is the supply doesn't double there in
Yeah.
everyone's mind. It stays 737. If you want one, you need to get the one that's verified. You need to get the legit one.
Yeah, and I think even if like Tops, even if Tops were to go ahead and like publish stuff on another chain, it still wouldn't be the original OS1 provenance that they established on Wax last May. It just as much as you want to go print it somewhere else, I just don't see it as ever being the same. And that was kind of my thing with taking assets from Ethereum and then minting them on side chains. And it's kind of like, well, aren't you destroying a little bit of history there when you burn the original NFT, right?
Hmm.
And I think the answer to that, as a historian, I mean, not a historian, but someone who appreciates history and appreciates links to history, especially on the internet, to destroy any information that was once there for me is almost like a sin.
So what we have now is an NFT built on a technology that no one can fudge, right? Um, we have a shared social consensus of what is real and what isn't. We have a value transfer mechanism via markets and trading, and we have what you just mentioned there, is something to pull it all together is just Yeah, that's what an NFT is. And then you have the art at the end, the art, the
Mhm.
actual art and design of things. So an NFT
Which
combines
is,
all of those things.
and usually the art is what wins for most people, and for myself. Like if I don't like the art, then it's probably, you're not probably going to find it in my wallet generally.
Oh, so you really, really like Potty Scotty? Is that what, the art of Potty
I
Scotty?
love Potty Scotty, bro. Like his art is premier, like
Really?
top notch.
You
Oh
should
yeah.
you see him at Christie's one day. I love the
Perhaps,
way somebody with a spectacle on their eye. I love the
perhaps.
way he's falling into the toilet.
But
Yes.
you know, the thing is about that is it was one of the earliest, like, dude, Garbage Pail Kids was outrageous at the time. Like, like it was so politically incorrect. And from a person who loves politically incorrectness, that card almost epitomized the set. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, how could they print this card? It's so, especially in the early 80s, right? And like, and they're making fun of like Hasbro dolls too at the same time, like
Yeah.
Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever, right? They even got sued over that. So, but one thing like Kevin mentioned to me, and I didn't even really notice it until he kind of said it, is that the color palette on the OS1 cards, all of them, is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Especially like April Showers
Yeah.
and like a couple of the other like really popular ones like Atom Bomb. Just like the artists that did those, and they're just so vibrant and just so, like I could look at the art on that set all day long and not get bored because there's all these like little intrinsic things that you can find that you could pick out. Like,
Even even over the years, an atom bomb has become the most popular. Like you look at, it's not just a card with a guy with his head blowing off. It was a art piece that was uh, present at the time, or was representing what was going on at the time with, I
nuclear
think so,
war.
nuclear war, right? So
Yeah,
there was a reason why he became, not only because he was the cover figure, but it also had sort of a historical significance as well.
yeah, yeah, for sure. and
Yeah.
and and that's also why Nick is super popular, because he has that sort of Dracula reference, right, to popular culture as well. And also like he was the first card in the set, so everyone loved that, of course, right? He's
So
the top of the barrel.
so I have a theory.
But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say on Nick, like, because in the physical cards, he was the corner card of the actual sheet of cards that they printed. Often it was very off-centered,
Mm.
and it was very difficult to find a centered one. So Nicks in the physical realm are even more rare, right? The
Oh.
like PSA 10 ones, anyways.
Yeah,
So
and I know for a fact there's like what, 24 or 23 sketches. So can you imagine the scarcity of having a Nick sketch? Like not only is he a popular character, but he's like that rare. It's kind of insane, to be honest.
mhm, pretty cool
Yeah.
for sure.
I was gonna say, like, given in 10 years time and you look back at this set, and I know we've gone down the road of talking about GPK OS1, but for other collectors there will be other things, and the kind of things that we're talking about are probably, you're going to be talking about the same when it comes to Avastars or Axie or even Alien Worlds, anything. But if you look at the historical what has happened in the last couple of years, do you think like there's any pieces in OS1 that has a little bit more significance because of what we've gone through?
I mean, Dead Ted, of course, right? And
Yeah.
then obviously the what's there's like a virus one, like what's her name?
Virus Iris.
Virus Iris. That's right. Yeah, I think that one definitely sticks out for
That's
sure.
cool. I like the
Yeah.
way you interpreted that. You're gonna go stack Virus Irises now, aren't you?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, I can't afford any more Dead Ted, so yeah, if I was gonna, speculate based on COVID, then I probably would go buy some Virus Irises or Sicky Vickies too.
There you go. So I guess, I mean, we spent some time here. We want to keep it light on the one-on-one side, but we'll have a follow-up conversation, like where we talk like about the next level after this is how do you determine where do you determine and how do you determine, and we'll try and keep it general so that everyone can look at, but how do you determine what's a verified collection? How do you look at scarcity numbers when you are purchasing? What do you look for in that regard? Can you think of anything else like we'd probably talk about on that 201?
Probably just general supply issues and
Maybe burning
um,
mechanisms.
burning mechanisms and how that affects things. Because I mean, that's still playing out,
Yeah.
and like I find it very curious that you could end up with, say, a large set where all the later mints are all burned because people are doing blenderizer, or they're doing a promotion where they get another card or whatever the case may be, that they decided that they were going to incentivize burning. And you could get some of these really, really late mint numbers, or there might be only 2 or 3 out there. And for me, that also kind of retains some value too, because then it's like they're pretty rare amongst these higher mints that don't exist anymore, right? And then back to what we talked about with Token Head too, is like, how does burning affect things, and do we slide the scale to, like, conglomerate everything so that we know what's been burned and what's not, or do we just leave it as it was originally minted and then interpret it from there, right? So that's also another interesting question. I think we might see multiple answers to in the future too. Some chains might decide to do it one way, and Wax certainly so far has just opted to just leave the burn data as is,
All right.
right? So
Yeah, that and something you alluded to earlier in this call was uh the fact of I'm just sort of drawing a blank here, but yeah, you mentioned it earlier. But the on-chain versus off-chain.
oh yes, yes. So whether or not the actual image is recorded on chain, so it's essentially immutable, and then the NFT maker can't then go and modify it after the fact. Like, say if they find an error or something, they can't fix it. Like, it's permanent, right? So that, and that's kind of the gold standard, and like it doesn't really exist in a lot of sets these days because it's a really difficult thing to achieve,
Yeah.
especially with bigger sets, right?
Yeah.
So that also, I think, is something that will have some tech forthcoming at some point, where somebody goes like, hey, I found a really easy way to store images on the blockchain, and
And
then
we're
it'll be
seeing it, like one of the things that I've been becoming aware of is like there are projects out there like Avastars and some of the stuff that NFT boxes are doing where their images are claimed to be on chain. So we need to dig into
Mhm.
that a little bit more and find out a little bit more of that. So we can talk about that in the next call as well.
Cool. Well, yeah, maybe we should get Roman on for that, because I think they have a EOSIO on chain file solution or
Yeah,
something.
love to talk about options
So
there for sure, because I think
yeah,
that is going to be a much bigger deal than it is now, potentially. So
I agree. And the beauty of most of the NFT standards these days is you can always add attributes. So after the fact, you can go through and add like all these on-chain images, right? And add a little bit of value for your customers.
well, that's a good idea. Yeah, so we'll talk
Mhm.
about attributes as well. Anyways, let's wrap it up and keep this video short. But thanks, Mike, for joining me on this exploration
Awesome.
of NFTs.
It's always fun to chat, and yeah, we'll do it again soon.
Okay. Peace out, everyone. Thank you for joining
Peace.
us. Later.